Hey guys, another episode of the Growth by Sean podcast coming at you. So I'm here with Dave Robinson. Dave, how are you?
I'm doing great, Sean. I appreciate your time, man.
Good.
Looking
No,
forward
I
to this.
appreciate your time. I'm the one that reached out to you. But I always give people a little bit of background just of how I connected with Dave. So if you've listened to, I think it's 2 podcasts ago now, Chase Tollison. Chase is in business or a friend or everything in between with Dave. And I actually found him through listening to Chase's podcast. So we're here with Dave now. Um, I guess we'll get started. How I usually like to start it is, Dave, just a little bit about you and the work that you do. So a little bit about who you are, kind of whichever direction you want to roll with it. For you, I actually would love a 2-part question where you can tell me a little bit about who you are, but also about who you are not.
Great question. Um, Great question. So I'll start with who I am, so I can think about the who I am not while I'm talking this. I am a coach here in Richmond, Virginia. I work with people all over the world to help them transform their stories from stories that are creating conflict internally and externally in their lives to stories that help them build the life they want to build and feel the way that they would like to feel internally and externally. I've got a long background in athletics and healthy holistic habits and fitness. I'm an ex D1 strength and conditioning coach. I've got a program that helps men achieve their health and fitness goals. And in the vast majority of that, we're doing a lot of this, what I call story work, right? So both Chase Tollison and myself are Enlifted Coaches, and Enlifted is the mindset company that puts on this type of training, and we're two of the best and most experienced coaches that have gone through their particular certification and then have gone through their programming, so to speak. So I took that and ran with it as soon as I learned how much it was affecting me positively, and as soon as I saw how much it was affecting my peers positively. So I've got close to 1,000 sessions under my belt, and it's something that I absolutely love. Who I am not. What am I not? Again, Sean, great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. I am not someone who takes life lightly. I'm not someone who is easily dissuaded from my personal ethos and personal goals. And my why, if you would ask me my why, it would be to travel and to train and to inspire and impact people positively. And I do that in a couple different ways, but that's something that's very important to me. And I don't deviate from that. I don't sell out. I stay true to me, and I stay true to my values, and we'll leave it there.
We can deal with that. Yeah, no, that's a good introduction. So thank you for that. But where I kind of want to start, I think a lot of people, especially the ones that are going to listen to this, are unfamiliar with what Storywork is. I was really never introduced to it until I had met Chase. I'm not completely sure on how far this goes back in like time. I'm not sure how well you know of that. Because I know storytelling is like a pastime forever. But
Totally.
how long has this story work and helping others undo these conflicts that they might have within themselves been around, and how is it starting to be more known?
Yeah, good questions. It's got its roots in NLP. Neville Goddard is an OG of this particular work. Neville Goddard, and where myself and Chase learned this from was by a gentleman by the name of Mark England. Mark England and his business partner Adam Chin co-founded it Enlifted. Before that, they co-founded Vocabulary. Before that, Mark was teaching this type of work and developing this practice in Thailand over the course of about 15, 16 years. And so me personally, I've been doing this 3 years, though I was first introduced to this work in 2017. Mark helped me out on some unofficial basis, and then I started professionally doing this in 2020. Remind me of the second part of your question again.
Where do you think this is going
Got
in?
it. Yeah. I think this is very akin to we're at the very beginning of the bell curve of the realization of words and breath and stories in our and how they affect our reality on a day to day. And so, similar to how ice baths used to be something that nobody ever really did or thought about, 10, 15 years ago, other than professional football players and Navy SEALs. And now you see ice baths all over as far as the health and wellness scene. I think that's a little bit higher up the bell curve as far as the popularity of this. But language is something, this language where the story work is something that many of us in the field view as the next like blue ocean of opportunity for people, because it affects every aspect of our daily life, no matter whether you're the janitor or the CEO or something in between. So, it's our thoughts and it's breathing, and those two things are happening pretty much 24/7 for everybody. So,
from there, I'd like to go into, I'm glad that you just left off on the word thoughts. So in terms of our thoughts, we have good and bad thoughts, correct? Yes, no?
I mean, we have thoughts
Just because
that,
I'm trying
yeah,
to
you're
understand.
contextualizing it totally. So our thoughts and our breath create a physiological response in our body, and then it's up to us to interpret what those responses are. And so
Okay.
a big part of meditation is simply observing thoughts and not judging thoughts for what they are. And we have a particular, we'll call it like a strain of thoughts, or a type or category of thoughts and words that create conflict with us and create those sympathetic nervous system response states, those or that or the just that don't feel good, that we would categorize as bad a lot of times. And then there's different types of language patterns and different words and thoughts and stories we can tell ourselves that elicit the opposite of that. And so my work largely deals in helping people get over the negative thoughts and the negative stories they tell themselves on a regular basis, as it relates to where they are currently, or as it relates to things that they've experienced in their past. And once we can create that space and create that clarity, and to have that understanding that our words are affecting our reality, then we can start to use that as good ammunition to help us build for the future. And so this is where we can get really creative with goal setting. We can do, you might have heard manifestation, or, things of that nature, and start to create the reality that we want for ourselves moving forward. And, it's in our belief that is almost entirely due to the stories you're telling yourself on a regular basis.
So these stories, when we start to walk ourselves through some of these, does it have to be something that we talk about out loud and go through it? Does it have to be a pen to a paper? Can we just think about it and kind of try to be more observant about it? How are some of like the normal process of getting through these conflicts that we might have within ourselves?
Yeah, great question. Awareness is the first step in any change. First, we have to be aware. We have to think about our thinking, right? And when we think about our thinking, things change, right? Things can actually be different moving forward. But unless we have an awareness of it, we're just having these thoughts. Right? Where do they come from? What do they mean? Yada yada, right? The awareness behind it is that first step. And then when we say language, or when we say thoughts, we're talking internal dialogue, thinking in my head right now, versus external dialogue, speaking with you and or someone else. And both of those two things, stories can arise. Oftentimes the ones that are most damaging for us are the ones that are internal. It's how we shit talk ourselves, or the stories that we carry in our head about our relationships to other people, our relationships to the world, our relationships to things we've experienced in the past. Those are often the most damaging of the stories, or the stories that hold us back from our fullest potential or happiness the most. And we can say things that negatively affect ourselves and others out loud just as much as we can think them in here. Most of us wouldn't talk to anybody else the way we talk to ourselves in our head.
Yeah, that's very true. So when we start to look at some of the internal conflicts that we have, from your experience, and I could be, how should I say this? Like I just guess saying it incorrectly. But do you think that most of like the things that we have built up are from our own self and like the negative talk that we may have from like a young age to now, or more like external factors? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm a
It's
big
worded a
believer.
little strangely.
Totally. Well, that's okay. Culture has a huge influence on us.
Mhm.
If I was born in Iran, I might have a different religious belief than
Mm,
having been born here in the United States, to the parents that I was born to, right? And so I think culture and upbringing play a massive role in how we view our world, and um, specifically how the experiences that we've been through, and the conditioning that we've had, the programming we've seen or heard, right? Be it TV or radio or Instagram or otherwise, those are going to have an influence on us, And I'm also a believer that you can make a different decision at any time. And
mhm,
once you have the awareness that these are areas of life to potentially put some time, energies, and efforts towards, maybe shine a light on, then it allows it gives out individuals the opportunity and the power to change if they so desire to change. So I don't think any of us are stuck in a set of cultural or programmed or learned experiences or belief systems. I think we can alter uh,
mm.
uh, what we think and what we believe and who we are, really.
Okay. So when we're going to change something, okay, about ourselves or a habit or just our next move, like me getting up or me sitting down, do we have to, do you think that we have to believe it, or can we just do it?
Well, actually, there's some science coming out now that says that before we even have a conscious thought, our bodies are aware of that thought up to 7 seconds ahead of time. So,
Hmm.
like, I have to raise my hand. Like, there's studies that show that I knew I was going to raise my hand, and my body was like prepared to raise my hand,
Hmm.
up even prior to that, right? And I do think there has to be a belief to affect real positive change. Like, you can prove it to yourself by just doing it and showing up and just become that thing, right? Or do
Hmm.
that thing without necessarily believing you can do it. And I think there's a huge aspect of goal setting and of accomplishing whatever we want to accomplish. Making and affecting change is believing that it's possible. And yet
Hmm.
confidence is only true confidence, not bravado or not any of that you know BS. Like, true confidence is built through making commitments and then following through with them to yourself, and then
Hmm.
proving to yourself over and over that you can do that thing, or that you can follow through, right? So every time we break a promise to ourselves, we dent our internal confidence, either consciously or subconsciously. And again, the ways to build that confidence and to build that belief system is to say you're going to do XYZ and then go do XYZ, and
Hmm.
understanding there's going to be trials and tribulations and failures and forwards and backwards and all along the way. Um, but I'm a firm believer that there's no such thing as an unrealistic goal or dream, just merely an unrealistic timeline. And we
Hmm.
may fail, and that's okay. And if we believe in what we're doing, and we believe in this thing that we're looking to positively affect or change or whatever it may be, or perhaps let go of, then uh, we eventually develop the identity of that type of person who does that thing. I think that's
It,
really, really important.
it's so interesting that you said identity, because that's exactly where I wanted to transition into. Wasn't sure how I was going to get there, but you said it, and now I can. Um, I would just love to hear a little bit about like how you have made identity shifts in your life. I think that might be beneficial to someone that's listening.
Totally. So I'll give an example here, and we'll keep it. You've got a sports background, so we'll keep it in that context.
Hmm.
I've been a soccer player my whole life, right? Ever since I was 3 years old. I've got a nephew who's 15 months, and today I was hanging out with him, and he was kicking a little ball around, and I was like, yes, this is his first time he's doing something with his feet. I'm going to get him in on soccer really early too. So I've got a lifelong love of the game. I categorize myself or I would identify myself rather as a soccer player. Now,
Hmm.
I'm not a pro soccer player. In fact, I pay to play soccer as opposed to get paid to play soccer, right? So, unfortunately, I don't have the identity of a pro soccer player, right? But I would identify as a soccer player, right? Uh, in college, my random roommate freshman year was like a 6-time national and junior powerlifting champion or something like that. And I had started to get into the gym a little bit. He challenged me in a really good way. And in the very beginning of our relationship together, we ended up spending all 4 years at college together. He's still one of my best friends. And by the end of my college career, I had gained 60 or 70 pounds. The things that mattered to me were, what my deadlift was. And, I was in the gym 5 days a week, no matter what, every single week, no matter what. I dropped off of the club soccer team, so I didn't play club soccer junior or senior year. Still loved it, still watched it, still might have identified myself as a soccer player, but I added the identity of a powerlifter to that. And that was my main thing. I was a powerlifter. I was getting jacked. I was getting strong. I'm a powerlifter, right? Today, I don't identify as a powerlifter anymore. I haven't touched a barbell literally other than to move it from one side of the, complex to the other. Like I haven't touched a barbell to work out in 4 years since I had a back injury in 2019. And, I identify much more as an ultra marathoner now, or as a runner, or as a Spartan obstacle course racing athlete, as a soccer player. Those are titles that I would identify myself as in the athletic world. And I let go of the identity of the powerlifter, which meant that I had to let go of some old stories and, let go of some old patterns and some ways of eating and some ways of working out and, et cetera. But I made a conscious decision to do that. And so I think identities here are fluid. And again, this is a very high level, or I guess not high level, but a very surface level type of conversation around identity, just because we're sticking in the athletic world. But, I think it does a good job of illustrating that the way we see ourselves is very fluid, right? And it could change depending on the situation. I'm super consistent in one area of my life and not as consistent in others. So do I identify myself as a consistent person? Depends on the day, right? It took a long time to identify myself as a world-class coach. And now that's unequivocal in my mind and in the mind of my clients and colleagues and peers, because I put in the work and I get the results, and it's something that I love to do. And it's something that I stated that I am. I got it written on my board, right there. I'm a world-class coach. And it took a while for me to embody that identity. And then once I did, now I believe that wholeheartedly. And so I think these identities can be things that are good, and perhaps they're bad. I had identity of, I was never an addict or never an alcoholic or anything like that, but I held the identity of somebody who went out to the bars for happy hour on a regular basis, and so, hey, that was not serving me for a myriad number of reasons. And so I got rid of that identity and stepped into something else, stepped into a more health conscious identity, so I think these things are very fluid, and they can be life-changing and life-giving if we give ourselves the opportunity to create the identities we want and to believe in ourselves.
I see. So you're also someone that I jump from topic to topic very, very quickly sometimes.
Perfect.
So you're going through a water only fast right now, if I'm correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I've also seen you do a lot of the ice baths and things like that. Why do you think it's important to do the hard things?
The other side of that is growth and really freedom in many capacities. Part of it is to convince yourself that you can do it. So when you have a hard conversation, or when you have something tough come up at work or whatever it may be, that you can get through it because you got this evidence, and these many hard things I do in relation to health, because I know that health is the number one priority for myself. And it's the number one priority for anybody if they don't have it. It's often something they overlook if they do have good health. And if they don't have good health, individuals would trade, every dollar in their bank account and more to get it back. And so it's something that I know can be preserved and enhanced over time through doing hard things. And hard things specifically is related to, physical in nature or mental in nature. And so, the ice baths, I don't particularly enjoy, though There are times that it feels great, and there are times that it's something that is fun to do in a group, or fun to introduce somebody new to, and stuff like that. And I would love to go eat some food right now, and I know why I've committed to this 5-day fast, and I know the health benefits. I imagine and believe in the health benefits that will come on the other side of this. And the hard thing is where our happiness comes from, in many ways, and our satisfaction and fulfillment comes from, because things are too comfortable or too easy. Really, I don't necessarily want to say what's the point, but because I love comfort, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, I understand that there has to be a balance between comfort and difficult things of one's choosing, in order to find that real fulfillment. And I ran a 40-mile ultra marathon more or less on a whim, untrained, 6-7 weeks ago, and I learned more about myself in that 11-hour time frame than I had, up to that year, or up until that point, pretty much in the year. So I think hard things are a way of kind of bringing timelines in together, condensing timelines, and accelerating lessons and learning and otherwise.
Yeah, I think not to put words in your mouth, but I don't think we're really learning in a lot of the comfortable situations.
Correct. Yeah, we're certainly not expanding, put it that way. And sometimes that's okay. You come off a period of growth, or of learning, or of expansion, or whatever. You need to have that rest. The pendulum has to swing. There has to be some sort of balance, right? So we can't be go, grind all the time, right? There's got to be a pendulum swing there. And when I think it's easy to fall back, I know it's easy to fall back on the comfort of comfort. And sometimes the best way to get out of that is to do something hard, something stretching.
So some of these hard things, someone that's very perhaps against them, or really doesn't want to do that, how can we start to convince ourselves or talk ourselves into actually doing them?
I think it's important to choose your hard. It doesn't have to be an ice bath. Maybe getting up off the couch and going on a walk around the neighborhood is hard for somebody listening, and that's awesome, right? Like choose that hard. I think the hard is going to come regardless, and death of a parent, marital stress, work stress, getting older, et cetera, right? Those are all hard. And, I think perspective is really key too. Going to war is hard. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, no.
That's a whole new level of hard that I'll experience or perspective in. But if I carry that perspective in my mind, then I can get through a 30-minute workout, or I can take a 2-minute ice bath, and this isn't war, so okay. So I'm not overcoming cancer right now. My mom didn't just die, right? So I think that there's ways that we can be better suited for the hard when they come, by training the hard now. And again, I think it's important to choose your hard. Going from couch to 5K is much easier than couch to ultra marathon, and maybe a step along the way, and that may be that first step to take.
I think a lot of times we look at the destination, we don't look at just, I can take this first step of getting off the couch, and that's the first step. It's a small step, but it's the first step.
Exactly.
Shifting from there, I'm curious of what your definition is of alignment, and how can we find alignment within ourselves?
How can we find alignment with ourselves? The definition of alignment would be,
in your own words, not a Webster.
I can't use the word align in the definition I mentioned. Alignment reminds me of balance, but not in the way of like on a scale, or like that pendulum swinging, like I was talking about before. Alignment to me is an optimization to oneself and one's purpose. How's that?
I like it.
Cool. Thank you. I was kind of thinking in the context of a car. If you're unaligned in the car, your wheels are unaligned, you're going to have wobbles, and you might head off, drift to the right or drift to the left. And being well aligned means, you're carrying forward and sturdy in your straight line.
It's an easy visual.
Yeah. But then also what's in alignment for Sean might be different than what's in alignment for Dave, or in alignment for Bob or Susan or Nancy. Right. And so I think finding that alignment within ourselves is going to be a personal conversation, a personal journey.
Okay. So do you think that's just about a trial and error of what makes us happy or what makes us fulfilled, what we feel gives us purpose, or is there other aspects to it?
I mean, purpose is so important. Purpose, searching for happiness, I think it can lead us down a tough road, because, hey, was I really happy when I was with my buddies at the bar? Like, sure, and that was certainly not a purposeful or fulfilling or healthy or otherwise endeavor on a regular basis, and so maybe I didn't, when I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't have that alignment. I didn't love who I saw, and not just from a physical standpoint, but it's, the man in the glass. Like, am I happy with who I am? And, that belief system, that alignment, that fulfillment, that passion, that purpose, I understand and I know that I'm very blessed to have discovered that for myself, or to have created that for myself. And I also know that there were a lot of decisions that I had to make along the way to put myself in the arena to have the opportunity to find this. I left a 5+ year relationship that wasn't serving me back in 2017. I was a financial planner for 6 years. I had a decent career, would have had a long, fulfilling, made money, helped people, yada yada, but it wasn't fully in alignment with who I was, and I knew there was something greater and better out there for me. And ultimately, like, it took a lot of courage and a lot of trials and errors and efforts to leave that and to find and figure out the next thing. And I am also a believer that once you find it, like, full send, go all the way. Like, Storywork for me, this is it. Like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. I'll have 30,000 sessions when I'm done, not just 1,000, and it's going to be something that, my personal goal is to be the best in the world to have ever done this type of work. And, I'm setting a long time horizon with that, and I'm setting a long, high trajectory with that. And it's a high goal, and it's something that fills me with passion and purpose, because I love it. And I share this on a lot of shows that I hop on. There's a concept called the hedgehog concept by Jim Collins. He wrote the book Good to Great, and he talks about this in terms of business, but I've related it in terms of my personal practice and my vocation, so to speak. So in order to have a hedgehog, think of a Venn diagram where all three meet in the middle, and it's got to have all three components in order to be the hedgehog, right? So this thing, this job, this career, this aspect, right, has to be something that you love to do, not that you just like to do, or not that you're just good at, right? You love to do it, right? It has to be something that drives your economic engine, and you got to make the money that you need to make or want to make from it. And third, and this is the key piece, it has to be something that you're born for, created for, or could one day be the best in the world at. And that was the biggest piece, is I think just based on upbringing, or who I am inherently, and my programming and my education, and all those things. Like, I feel like I was born for this. I was created for this, and I believe I can one day be the best in the world at it. And it was never going to be that case for financial planning. Even when I was personal training, like, I liked it. I didn't love it, and I can name a dozen trainers off the top of my head that are better than me, and they always will be, and that's okay, and so I understand that that's rare, and it can be found and it can be created if the intention and the desire is there.
Why do you think so many people struggle with finding this sense of purpose?
Partly because they don't do hard things often enough. Partly because, they're just going about their day-to-day lives as they've been instructed to do by their parents or society or the government. Most people are working jobs they don't want to work, or they settled for the relationship that they settled for, and that to quote Charles Bukowski, your life is your life. Don't let it be clubbed into dank submission. And I think so many people, so many men especially, have their lives clubbed into dank submission, and they don't have the awareness, wherewithal, courage, ability to change it. And we're a decision away from an entirely different world if we make it, and if we make it consistently. And so I think a lot of us are climbing mountains. We just, we're climbing just to climb them. This is the path. I'm gonna do this thing, right? And
Yeah.
without like, no, you can either go back down and like look at the mountain range and choose another mountain, or you can take a right or a left or stop or whatever. Like we're going after goals that aren't ours.
So someone that's in this loop of stuckness, even though that might not be a word. I don't think stuckness.
It is a word. Stuckness is a word.
Okay.
Yes.
What piece of advice are you giving them aside from what you just said, that an actionable step that they can do today?
Write down your shit talk.
Okay.
Yeah. So
is that just like a mental audit, just like of throughout the day, or?
No, I would have a especially if one's feeling low or down or stuck, right? There's a mental dialogue going on. How are you speaking to yourself about yourself on a regular basis? And particularly as it relates to where you're feeling in your life or where you are in your life or what you're feeling at that moment. And it's an old Native American proverb. I don't know the tribe, but it's an Indian proverb, and it's a grandfather is around the campfire and he's telling all the grandchildren and all the youngins of the village a story, right? And he starts off, there's a battle being waged inside of us, and it's been waged since the very beginning of time, and it's in each and every one of us, and it's a battle between two wolves, a dark wolf of evil and hatred and pain and suffering, and a light wolf of joy and love and peace and happiness. And it's always going, it's terrible war, right? And there's lots of oohs and ahs from the little kids, and somebody pipes up, well, Grandpa, who wins? And I got an illustration right here for y'all, if you're watching it. The one you feed, the wolf you feed. There's a picture of a dark wolf and a light wolf fighting. And ultimately, I think many of us are unconsciously, subconsciously, maybe consciously feeding that dark wolf shit talk all day long, and evidence of why we can't do this thing, or why this is against us, or just really in a victim mentality mindset, or in a just woe is me mindset. And ultimately we can get really fundamental and take what's in here in our heads and put it down on paper and write it down on the computer screen or something, and go through a process. I take my clients through a process of not only actualizing yourself with those words, but then analyzing them for accuracy, because a lot of times it's not true. If I'm, oh, David, you're such an idiot. Like, I'm not an idiot. I can do dumb things, and I certainly don't identify as an idiot. So repeating to myself, you're an idiot all the time is not accurate, not true, nor is it helpful, and so getting those stories up and out of our heads about how we talk and how we think to and about ourselves is critical. And that's something that if we take it out of our heads and put it on paper, now it's not swirling in there anymore, right? And we can replace that with something else. And that's the other key piece to this, is just like a habit. It's really hard to just cold turkey something and stop. Our bodies are going to want to go to something else. They're going to want to replace it with something else. And so if we can replace a bad habit with a good habit, that isn't, 1 minus 1 equals out. That's, especially with health and especially with personal development, like that might be a +5 or a +10 of growth, replacing something bad with something that's helpful. And so if we replace our negative self-talk with some positive self-talk, especially if we can find that evidence to believe it in ourselves, then it puts us in a place of a different place than we were before with the words we were using before.
So if the majority of people had started to do this and replace their negative with positive self-talk, or feed their light wolf than their dark wolf, how do you think the world would start to change?
We love each other more. People would love themselves more, and people would look at the world more and interact with the world with more open-hearted empathy, love, compassion, and otherwise. And I think those are very very incredible things to lean into, and very incredible things to strive for. And ultimately, you asked me my definition of alignment. I had a definition of impact ready. My definition of of impact as the ripples we create and send out into our world. And
Mhm.
that could be negative impact, or that could be positive impact. And the more people who are feeding that inner light wolf, the more positive ripples will be cast out and sent into our world. So, I believe it changes things very quickly and very dramatically if people start to assess their own unhappiness and their own stuckness and their own internal dialogue, and realize that you wouldn't say to your best friend or worst enemy the things we often say to ourselves in our own
Mhm.
heads. And so changing that ultimately changes the vibration of us and the frequency of us internally, and thus how people relate to us. And uh, everybody's a role model in some capacity,
Mm.
be it to
Yeah.
a friend or a spouse or a son or a daughter or a parent, or, an acquaintance on Instagram. Like we
Yeah.
don't even know who's watching or not. And so
Mhm.
when we put out good, we get good, and we share good, and other people can receive that.
To um to wrap things up here, do you think that it's possible that we could get to that point?
I do.
Okay.
That's not to say there isn't evil. There will always be evil in the world, because
Mhm.
every time the sun sets, it gets dark. So there's
Yep.
polarity, right? And there's
Yep.
always good and evil, right? I think that this language conversation is still just beginning.
Mm.
A to Z alphabet. We're on like capital A. We haven't even gotten to the lowercase a. Go to the capital B, lowercase b, all the way through. Like we're in the very beginning of this
Mm.
conversation of language and words and stories becoming mainstream. And I think that once that continues to happen, then people are going to start to assess things for themselves and realize they have it in their power to change it. And
Mhm.
people want to be empowered, and it's very when people are empowered to make changes for themselves, they tend to be more lasting changes than if they were something you had to do or should do or need to do or whatever. And so um, it's a very utopian thought, and potentially inaccurate thought, to believe the whole world can be, singing kumbaya, and the lions and the gazelles are just going to be hanging out side by side and, not eating one another. And
Mm.
I do believe that with our generation and the next generation specifically coming up, that we can start to affect this change throughout our own worlds, our own internal worlds, internally inside ourselves, and then inside our circle and our bubble, and then keep sending that outward.
Mm.
And that's
So,
how change is made. Yeah,
what advice would you give someone that is interested in starting to either look at their own story work or um, possibly get into coaching the same way you do?
totally. Um, One is, I would say, get a coach.
Hmm.
Hire somebody, or find somebody, a mentor, a coach, somebody to hold you accountable and to teach you. Because if I wasn't taught this, then I wouldn't be doing it, because I wouldn't know
Hmm.
it. Right. Um, and there is an adage of just start and keep going. I mean, we all are white belts, so to speak, or beginners in things when we're new, and
Hmm.
they seem new or foreign, and it can be really, really impactful. And so I would just tell people to start. And if you find the results are coming, or you find that you are enjoying the process, you see the benefits of it long term, then keep going, even through the trials and tribulations and whatnot. And having someone who is knowledgeable, who is an expert, who can hold you accountable, like having someone in your corner, even as just a corner man, or just as your buddy, that's huge. It's
Mm.
huge.
Yeah, you can't. I was talking to someone. I don't want to butcher the quote, but if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together.
Bingo, you nailed it.
um, do you want to just let us know where we can reach you in terms of social media or podcasts, where we can listen to you, see your face, things like that?
Totally. I'm on Instagram at daverobinson.coach. On Instagram at daverobinson.coach. And for folks who want to learn a little bit more about Storywork, or potentially want to inquire about working with me and hiring me as a coach to help them work their stories, I am at www.workyourstories.com. Again, that's workyourstories.com. And again, this is a work that's been profoundly impactful in my life, and I see it as the through line between all the other stuff I was always doing. You know, I was running the miles and lifting the weights and eating the good food and yada yada, and still something was just off. You know, and this tied everything together and allowed all those things to be much more impactful, and allowed me to really love myself, actually. Like
Yeah.
truly love myself. And you know, I come from a background of hating myself, and so that's a full 180, and it's one that I cherish and has changed my life.
hmm Guys, you can take it from me. I've never worked with Dave personally, but I have worked with Chase on a one-on-one setting into what I didn't even know what Storywork was. And I've been doing it for the past 6 weeks. And there has been such a shift. Someone pointed it out. The confidence that I have is so different. So different. And I didn't really think that anything had changed. But like the way I walk is a little different, the way I talk is a little different. And I didn't know why. And I think that it comes down to that the way Chase had put it, I had a lot of blockages, um, and I could just see things a little bit clearer, and that's it. So, if that's what you're looking for, or you're not 100% happy, then maybe hi- uh, even just having a conversation with Dave or Chase might go and help you. You don't know. You don't know.
Absolutely, man. You know, and I'll throw this out there too, if it's okay.
hmm
Chase and I, one of my dear friends and colleagues, and we are actually hosting a immersion experience March 9th through 12th in Tucson, Arizona, for coaches and slash people who have actually gone through this work before. So
hmm
this is going to be a heavy immersive experience for people who uh, are well versed in story work, and we're putting that out there again because coaches need to take their coaching hats off, and get coached too. So
hmm
that's something that you can reach out to either myself or Chase about if that's something that's interesting.
Yeah, we can. It does look really cool. It looks really cool. And you
It's
guys
gonna be
picked,
cool.
it looks like you picked a good venue. It looks nice.
It's gonna be cool. I am thrilled about our Airbnb we got to steal, so I'm really happy about that.
Yeah. All right, Dave, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. So, guys, I'll see you next time.